But you are here in the General Education track session, and we are talking about financial literacy in any subject, resources for teachers anywhere. So we have two ways we're going to talk about this, a little bit of a discussion point of view that gets us to our financial foundations course that I encouraged you to look at in the prior session, and then also a simulation. And that's going to be where we have open breakout work time. So excited if you take a look at what we call Taxes with Sasha, where we engage students to learn about the reality of filing taxes through hands-on simulation. So that's where we are. Resource any subject. Still me, David Cook. And since I get another session, I want to tell you I've been so excited to work as the content manager for Intuit. And before that, I said I'm from the Chicago suburbs. I taught high school business and personal finance. And it's fun for me to have a continued connection to teachers and hearing and seeing what you're doing in the classroom. Even the idea of a bell ringer by any other name. I can't remember what the exact word that the teacher used. The FinSights cards is to way do now. The do now idea had not used the word do now before, but I like that as another way to talk about how we get students excited to start a classroom with a hook. So that's me, David Cook, curriculum manager, and used to teach personal finance in high school. Goals for this session really two things we want to talk about and have you see and look at. First of all is the course that's discussion based. In addition to FinSights, this financial foundation course and a self-contained simulation. There were questions earlier about what does our self-paced course look like? So our self-paced course, which some of you peeked at, that is videos and questions, but also what do our simulations look like? Because these are also self-paced. Oftentimes we connect them to a lesson that still has a lesson plan and bell ringer, but these self-contained ways that we have students learn. And really the purpose of both of these is to say, if you have financial literacy expertise, great. But what if you don't? What if you're still learning? What if you're still understanding how do I have conversations with my YMCA group or my foster students or Money Matters, I think someone said earlier was the name of their organization. What if you're still learning alongside with them? And how can you facilitate the learning to students? So that's what we've been excited to create and build. So let's start with a question. Quick draw. Um, A or B to the following question. If you would please chime in and maybe get a why. And you can choose to answer this as the person that you are today, or what I tend to like to do to practice my teacher skills is how might my students respond to this? So your choice, but would you please respond, starting by saying I'm going to respond from, teacher or student point of view, how my students might answer this? I think that's a fun way to get our brains moving while many of us are in the summer on break. So what would you, or maybe even more importantly, your students choose, A or B? So I'll let you drop into the chat. Oop, got it.
Sorry
We're
about that,
back.
David. Right back.
That's all right. We're good. All right. I saw a student, big ol' A. Teacher, big ol' A. Sphere, I like that answer. That might be me. That might be my favorite. Big ol' A as a teacher B. We're definitely getting both. I want to hear if I can from M. Maller, student B. I want to hear a little more on the why in a second as we weigh in. Teacher A, we got a little bit of both. I like this. And I got Yesenia says B for you, but a student perspective A. Could we get a little more why? Could we get a little more why or reasoning to any of you why you think your students would say this? Wow. These are great. I like the diversity of answers as the you could start with the simplicity as extra days. What's the worth of extra days? Extra days are worth everything. Or like Dolores saying, they as in students live in the now. Which person living in the now could say, I want the money now, or yeah, the idea of the extra days off. Really interesting, Lana. I think that could lead to a follow-up discussion too. The youth see money, adults value time. It's really fascinating. Um, Rashana, yes. Anything for a day off school. Anything for a day. As a teacher, I need more time to regroup. We've done an activity with students. We do these A-B activities quite a bit with students when we get to do in-person events. And I really like these, again, as a do now or a warm up. I think starting with these questions, sometimes I'm still continually surprised at what students would say. Sometimes I have the expectation students will see this. Goodness, the YOLO mentality. It's great to start with activities like this and hear students articulate the why from their point of view. I know for me in the classroom, it was always great if I went in with the assumption of what students were going to say or whatever the learners were, then I taught with that same assumption. But to hear from students and key into their point of view, say what do you want and what do you value? That was often really, really powerful. So great answers. Love that. So we have a course called Financial Foundations. I'm going to give a moment here, even this, though this is not necessarily breakout time. If you still have your Intuit for Education account open, by all means, please take a look. You would navigate yourself to courses. So I'll give a moment to do that. You would go to courses and you would find Financial Foundations. It says 1 unit. And I do want to point out there was a question earlier. You might see three different financial foundations courses, one that says Canada, one that says UK, and then one that says neither. So that's the one I'm talking about, financial foundations. And there's 7 different lessons. There's one called money mindsets, financial choices, savings. So I'm going to pop one of these open really quick here. The idea behind these is we wanted these to be able to be used in any setting. We have lots of materials and resources for the teacher saying, I'm a financial literacy teacher. I have a class devoted to it, or a week devoted to it, or a unit, or I'm an FBLE teacher. What do I do if I'm a teacher saying, I need something that's flexible for any setting, can be standalone? I want to really emphasize this idea of no prior financial literacy needed. Because oftentimes we look at this idea of a curriculum, and I know when I would search for a curriculum, you'd find something, you'd say, okay, this is about choices. And it would be in the context of banking or credit, and there'd be prior vocabulary or language required. We're really excited about this. And this is actually the link that has been dropped in this session, in the prior session. How do I get myself access to those Finsites, the digital and the electronic? These were built about these, and so as I see conversations coming in still on this A/B choice, as Tara says, would this work for using with subs? It's a great question, Tara. I like that. The lesson that I pulled up in Financial Foundations, the course that we're talking about right now that you can navigate to, it starts out with what's one money topic that people talk about? And then it follows up with that. talking about money feels like blank, fill in the blank. So I'd ask if a couple of you want to jump in, maybe with the student mindset. Talking about money feels like blank. Hmm. Talking about money can feel like stress. Yeah, something that's for adults, anxiety inducing. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. So this lesson starts with that idea of even acknowledging, hey, talking about money can feel like all these things. And then has students as part of this lesson, um, starting to build some norms. So the lesson plan, which I'm looking at right now, which I encourage you to take more time to dive into financial foundations. I'm looking at the financial choice ones. The class creates a set of norms. The class or groups of students says, here's the norms we're going to create to talk about money because it can be stressful, because it can be feel like somebody's sitting on your chest. And then agreeing to a set of norms and then using the FinSights cards to talk about money. Again, no prior knowledge required. These lessons don't go deep into formulas or academic definitions, but really has students walk away. The objectives for it are the two objectives for this particular lesson in financial foundations are compare perspectives with another perspectives and articulate the reasoning behind a financial choice. When we really think again, why do we use this course and these examples as not necessarily for teachers with prior knowledge or not needed for a financial literacy setting? Because comparing personal perspectives and articulating the reasoning are such great concepts that can be woven into probably any class. Compare perspectives and articulate the reason behind meaning. And so we've applied those concepts to financial literacy. So that's the first course that we'd really encourage you to take a look at is Financial Foundations. Um, there's with 7 lessons, it's out, how do we suggest you maybe use this? Um, it's really up to you. This is where, as a teacher, we want to continue to hear from you. You find times, do you have a specific group of students where you're working with? You say, hey, I've got a summer session for 2 weeks. Great. We've got 7 days of lessons that you could do that broadly cover a bunch of topics. Or is it something you visit back? Find your goals, understand. Yeah, that's great. I really like that, Noka. Um, we have a lesson that we do that surrounds money mindsets. Jessica, yes, we have our financial literacy course has a money mindsets unit, and we talk about the same thing about how we are influenced by our friends and family. That's both. We have a money mindsets in both our guided and self-paced course, but I've never used it in a classroom. I really like that, Nilka, that we talk about that with your children at home, but have never used it in a classroom setting. Yeah, we design these hoping that these would bring out conversations that are appropriate and at the right level for students in a classroom. All right. So this gets us to the next part where we're going to talk about one of our simulations. So this is quite the opposite. So I'm gonna give a little context setting for this. Because what we've talked about up till now was a guided course, Financial Foundations, and how you could use that to lead students. You'd have a slide deck and a lesson plan and worksheets and FinSights cards where you as the teacher would be front and center. This next piece, again, is part of our session in general education on resources for teachers, any subject, is very specific to one concept, and that concept is taxes. And we have found that talking about taxes and teaching taxes can be challenging for both the teacher and the students. For the teacher to say, how do I know if I'm teaching this the right way? And what do I know about taxes? So the question I would ask the group is, how do we feel as far as confidence and readiness to introduce a concept like filing taxes to students? Depending on the age group of students you're working with, some of them might not be there or they're earning income yet. So how do they understand the need to file it? So we are going to look at this simulation called Taxes with Sasha. We will have breakout rooms to that end for a moment. And I'm going to make sure I get us to the right spot. So one moment. We might drop a link to a chat. I would say this simulation, I wanted to give us enough time to get most of the way through it. I'm just doing a quick time check. We have till 45. So I think what I'm going to do is this. Matt, you're here with me, right? We can set the breakout time.
Yep, yep, I'm here.
O- Okay, as we get teachers into this, I'm going to determine a time. I think we're going to determine a time based on the slides we have after this. I think we're going to give 8 minutes. So 8 minutes feels about right. I don't know that you will finish the taxes with Sasha. So as Matt gets set up to open breakout rooms, let's do, Matt, can we do more like, and if you've already got five on rinse and repeat for breakout rooms, that's fine. But if you're resetting it, can we go up to six?
Sure.
I think it might be more beneficial to have six teachers in a room to make sure, because
Yep.
people are going to go at different paces through this.
It'll be
So
five
to
to
everybody in the
six.
room, yep. If everybody in the room, if I could get a thumbs up from maybe like five people to know that you still retained what we did in the last session on how to get to Intuit for Education and go to simulations and find a simulation called Taxes with Sasha. Sphere and Tammy and Lisa can do it, and so can Sharon. That means you can all do it.
Okay. I'm ready to beam them up.
All right, beam them up. We're going to give 7 minutes to look at this simulation. I think some of you will get halfway done, depending on how fast you want to go. But please take a look at that, and we will be in here.
Okay.
Thank you,
Opening
Sphere,
the rooms
aka
now.
Coleman. All right, for those of you coming back in, I know there might be a temptation to continue working on what you are working on. So I'd ask to welcome you back here to the Zoom. Earlier, we talked about the A versus B choice and what students might say to the temptations. I'm I don't need to see any of your computer screens, Jessica, to know what your screens may be on, in addition to all the things you have going on in your life. So thank you to those of you. If you're still looking at taxes with Sasha, awesome. You're still looking at taxes with Sasha. That's a great exercise. But I would love to hear, how might you use this in your setting as a way to specifically dive into teaching what taxes are? And are there things you'd want to prep students in advance before they get starting? Sure. Okay. We are. Man, a great exercise to walk through how to print out. Yeah, I've seen that before. I want to talk to Amanda's comment in a second. Dolores, I realize you have a unique setting and a correction setting for sure, but Collaborate is helpful. Yeah, Mary's saying it, I think, and queuing, if I'm saying your name right. Mary, I think we face that issue a lot with educators where we have this idea of, oh, students can be on two tabs and one piece of paper all at the same time. I know that when I try to do tasks on my student's Chromebook with my older eyes, I said, man, I can't even see the screen, let alone when you try to go split screen and look at two tabs. So I appreciate the creativity of thought of saying, hey, I could give that W-2, pull that up to be on paper for them. But is there a PDF of the information? Yeah, I'll talk more about that. Is there a PDF? Printing resources. I'm seeing a lot of that. Yeah, Honda. I want to talk about that too with the errors, but I know we're tight for time. So I'm looking through these comments. Taxes, lingo before the simulation. Absolutely. Um, yeah, the concept of paying taxes. So I think there's definitely some questions and takeaways, and I'll stay on for a little longer through our break if some of you want a specific answer because I asked for that feedback and I do care about it. But keeping aware of our time, which is drawing to a quick end, really the idea of this session after session one, where we got you connected to Intuit for Education, was to show you two different levels that we have. Financial foundations was this idea of, really any day, any subject, question-based inquiry, no prior financial knowledge. Taxes with Sasha, on the other hand, that's a specific skill. There's a real outcome. There's this idea of, hey, I might need to know some vocabulary first, in order to have success, or I might want my students to have the vocabulary. I suppose you all have different approaches. Some of you say, I want my students to know everything before they start a simulation. Some of you say, I might want a simulation to learn and bring out some questions. And we do have a lesson. We have curriculum and we have lessons. We have a lesson specifically on filing taxes in our curriculum where Sasha is connected to this, but it's also ability to be standalone. But really the takeaway is, the question for you all is, are you willing to start? You don't need to be an expert to teach financial literacy. And that's why we have financial foundations on one end and concepts like taxes with Sasha on the other end. One of them teacher led, the other student led. One of them, simple no right or wrong answers as opposed to taxes where there are very clearly right or wrong answers. So I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to dig in to look at taxes with Sasha and financial foundations course.